I came back from my trip, and when I walked into my bedroom, I couldn't find my bed. My daughter-in-law appeared, smiling, and said, "Eleanor, we redecorated everything. This room is mine now." I kept my cool, looked her straight in the eye, and answered, "You want a space just for you? Perfect. You can start looking for a house to live in today." Just like that, the color drained from her face. When I opened the door to my house, after a 15-day absence, the first thing I felt was that something was wrong. The air smelled different of fresh paint, of expensive perfume that wasn't mine. I left my suitcase at the entrance and walked slowly down the hallway, my heart starting to beat faster, as if my body knew something my mind didn't want to accept yet. My feet took me straight to my bedroom. The door was ajar. I pushed it with a trembling hand, and that's when my world stopped. My bed was gone. That mahogany woodbed where I had slept for 25 years, where I had mourned my husband's death, where I had sewn my children's clothes in the early morning hours, had vanished. In its place was a modern, white bed with decorative pillows that looked like they were ripped from a home decor magazine. The walls I had painted a peach color were now a light gray. My photographs, the pictures from my wedding, of my young children, of my husband with his smile, were no longer hanging. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. "Do you like how it turned out, Eleanor?" The voice came from behind me, sweet as poisoned honey. I turned around slowly. There was Veronica, my daughter-in-law, leaning against the doorframe with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was wearing a tight, wine-colored dress, her hair freshly styled, her nails perfectly manicured. She looked victorious. "What did you do?" My voice came out weaker than I wanted. "We redecorated, Eleanor. The house needed a change, you know, something more modern, more functional." She walked closer and ran her hand along the gray wall. "And well, this room is perfect for me. It has better light, more space. Kevin and I needed it." My hands started to tremble. I clenched my fists to control them. "Where are my things? Where is my bed?" Veronica sighed, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "In the garage, Eleanor. It's all there, safely stored. Don't worry." She paused and tilted her head. "We thought you could stay in the guest room. It's smaller, yes, but at your age, you don't need that much space, right? Besides, that way you don't have to climb stairs every day." Every word was a slap in the face. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't give her that satisfaction. I looked her straight in the eye. Those eyes that now shone with something I had never seen before. Contempt. And in that moment, I understood something that broke my soul. To her, I wasn't a person. I was an obstacle. An old piece of furniture that had to be moved to make space. I took a deep breath. "You want a space just for you?" I said with a calmness I didn't know I possessed. She smiled wider, believing she had won. "Perfect," I continued. "You can start looking for a house to live in today." Her smile froze. The color drained from her face as if someone had flipped a switch. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "What did you say?" "You heard me, Veronica. If you need your own space so badly, get yourself a house. This one is mine." But what I didn't know at that moment, what I couldn't yet imagine, was that this confrontation was just the beginning, because Veronica hadn't acted alone, and what I would discover in the coming days was going to shatter me in ways I couldn't even fathom. Because when you trust the people you love, you never expect them to stab you in the back, much less when those people are your own flesh and blood. If this story is touching your heart, subscribe to the channel to continue hearing real testimonies of women who found their strength when all seemed lost. Veronica looked at me as if I had lost my mind. She let out a nervous laugh, the kind that sounds fake even to the person making it. "Eleanor, you can't be serious. Kick us out? But Kevin is your son. This is his house too." "I bought this house," I said, and my voice now sounded firmer. "I paid for it, brick by brick, with the sweat of my brow, and nobody asked for my permission to touch my things." At that moment, Kevin appeared in the hallway, my son, the boy I carried in my womb, whom I raised alone after his father died, to whom I gave everything I had and everything I didn't. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking like he had just woken up, even though it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. "What's going on? Why are you yelling?" he asked, scratching his head. "Your wife turned my bedroom into hers," I told him, feeling the rage begin to break through the calm I had maintained. Without asking me, without even telling me, did you know? Kevin avoided my gaze. He stared at the floor, just like when he was a boy, and I caught him in a lie. Mom, Veronica said it was a surprise. That we wanted to renovate the house to make it look better. I didn't think. You didn't think? I interrupted. Or you didn't want to think. Veronica moved closer to him and took his arm, in a gesture that was meant to be protective but seemed possessive to me. Kevin, your mom is overreacting. We just made some improvements. The house was so outdated, with ancient furniture. We did it for everyone's good. For everyone's good? I repeated, feeling something hot rise in my chest. Where is the good for me in all of this? Kevin finally looked at me. Mom, calm down. It's not that big of a deal. We can fix up the guest room really nicely for you. We can even… I don't want you to fix anything for me. I cut him off. I want my room. I want my things. I want to be respected in my own house. The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable. Veronica squeezed Kevin's arm tighter. Eleanor, I think you're being a little selfish, she said, and her tone had now changed. It was colder. This house is big. It has 4 bedrooms. Why do you need the biggest one if you're alone? Kevin and I need space. We're thinking about having a baby soon and… Then find a house for that baby, I said. Kevin sighed, frustrated. Mom, don't be like that. Where are we supposed to go? We live here. This is our home. Your home, I repeated slowly, letting the words hang in the air. And what about mine? I needed to see my things. I needed to confirm with my own eyes that this wasn't a nightmare. I went down the stairs to the garage with Kevin and Veronica following me. When I opened the door, the smell of dampness hit me in the face. There they were, my furniture, my antique wooden dresser, the one that had belonged to my mother, my disassembled bed, leaning against the wall, my boxes. I opened one with trembling hands and found my photographs thrown in carelessly, some with broken frames. The photo from my wedding to Arthur, the glass shattered right over his smiling face. I felt something inside me break. We put them away carefully, Eleanor, Veronica said from behind, but her voice sounded hollow without conviction. I took the broken photograph in my hands. Arthur looked at me from the past, young, happy, not knowing he would die just 12 years later and leave me alone to raise our children. I pressed the frame against my chest. I need to be alone, I murmured. Mom, Kevin tried to approach. I said I need to be alone, I shouted, and my voice bounced off the garage walls. They left. I heard them go up the stairs and close the door. I stayed there, sitting on the cold garage floor, surrounded by my life packed in cardboard boxes as if it were worthless. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since Arthur's funeral. But these tears were different. They weren't of sadness for an unavoidable loss. They were of rage, of betrayal, of a pain so deep it was hard to breathe. Because it's one thing to lose someone to death. It's another thing entirely for the living to erase you, to discard you, to treat you like an inconvenience in your own home. That night I slept in the guest room. Or I tried to sleep. The bed was small, the mattress hard, and from there I could hear Veronica and Kevin's laughter in my bedroom. Sometime in the middle of the night, I heard them making love. And I, the owner of that house, was lying there in a room that smelled of disuse, staring at the ceiling, wondering at what point my life had turned into this. But what they didn't know, what I still didn't know, was that this humiliation was just beginning. Because the next day I was going to discover something that would force me to open my eyes once and for all. Something that was going to show me that the redecoration of my room wasn't just a whimsical remodel. It was part of a plan they had been hatching for months. And I had been so blind, so trusting, that I didn't see the signs until it was too late. Or maybe not too late. I couldn't sleep. The hours passed slowly, heavily, as I tossed and turned on that small bed that creaked with every movement. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I gave up. I got up and went to the kitchen to make myself some chamomile tea, the kind my mom used to make for me when I was a little girl and couldn't sleep. The house was silent. The only sound was the ticking of the wall clock that Arthur gave me on our 10th anniversary. I sat at the kitchen table with the hot mug between my hands, and memories washed over me like waves. I remembered when Arthur and I were young and dreamed of having our own house. We lived in a rented 2-bedroom apartment in a rough part of the city, with walls so thin we could hear everything the neighbors did. Arthur worked as a mechanic, and I sold homemade casseroles in the mornings. We saved every dollar, every single dollar. I remembered the day we found the land. It was an empty lot out in the suburbs, way past where the city lights ended, with no utilities, but it was the only thing we could afford. $20,000 that took us 8 years to save. When we signed the deed, Arthur picked me up and spun me around in the middle of the dusty plot. "We're going to build our future here, my love," he told me. I was 32 years old. He was 35. We never got to build it together. 2 years after the accident, Arthur died when a car ran a red light and hit him on his way to work. I was left alone with Kevin, who was 15, and Claire, who was 12. With no money, still without our own house. But I did have a piece of land and a promise I had made at his grave. Our children were going to have that home. I took 2 jobs, 3 sometimes. I cooked at a diner from 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. Then I cleaned offices from 4 to 9 at night. On weekends, I sold cupcakes and cookies for kids' parties. I slept 4 hours a day. My hands filled with calluses. My back started to ache permanently, but I kept saving. Kevin would tell me, "Mom, get some rest, the house doesn't matter." But it did matter. To me, that house was more than bricks. It was proof that Arthur's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. It was my way of honoring his memory. It was the stability my children deserved. It took me 15 years to save the $100,000 for the construction. 15 years of watching other mothers go to school events while I was working. 15 years without buying new clothes for myself. Without going to the movies. Without a single indulgence. Everything, absolutely everything, went to the house. When we finally finished building, I was 49 years old. I invited my children to see their home. Kevin, already 30, came with Veronica. They had been dating for 6 months. She walked in, looking at everything with disinterest, as if it were just any old house. She didn't know. She couldn't know. That every tile in the bathroom had cost me a double shift. That every window represented a month without eating meat. That the spacious living room existed because I had worn shoes with holes in them for 2 years. Claire did cry. My daughter hugged me and whispered in my ear, "You did it, Mom. Dad would be so proud." Now, sitting in my kitchen at 4 o'clock in the morning, 67 years old, and feeling every one of them in my tired body, I ask myself, what was it all for? To end up displaced in my own house? For my daughter-in-law to erase my history as if it were worthless? For my son to allow them to treat me this way? The tears fell again, silent, bitter. I heard footsteps on the stairs. It was Kevin. He was coming down in his boxers and a t-shirt, his eyes puffy with sleep. He was surprised to see me. "Mom, what are you doing awake?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at him. I tried to see in this 42-year-old man the little boy who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mom in the world. But that boy was no longer there. "I can't sleep in that bed," I finally said. "My back hurts." Kevin opened the refrigerator and took out some water. He poured himself a glass and stood there, not looking at me. "Mom, I know you're upset, but do you know how much this house cost me, Kevin?" He remained silent. "Do you know how many nights I worked without sleep so you could have a roof over your head? How many times I skipped meals so you could eat 3 times a day?" "Mom, don't start with that." "No, son, I need you to understand." I stood up, feeling my knees protest. This house isn't just walls and a roof. It's my blood, it's my life, and you two are treating it like it's a property you can just remodel as you please. Kevin put the glass down on the table with more force than necessary. "So what do you want me to do? Tell Veronica to undo everything? We already spent $15,000 on the remodeling, Mom." $15,000? I froze. "What did you say?" "The paint, the furniture, the decorator, all that costs money." "And where did you get that money?" Kevin looked away. "We have our savings." But something in his tone told me he was lying. I knew him too well. When he lied, he would scratch the back of his neck and avoid looking me in the eye, just as he was doing now. "Kevin, look at me." He didn't. He glanced up, and in his eyes I saw something that scared me. Guilt, deep guilt. "What did you do?" I asked, feeling fear creep up my spine. "Nothing, Mom. We just improved the house, that's all." "Did you use my money?" "No." "Then what?" Silence. A silence that weighed a ton. Kevin finished his water in one gulp and headed for the stairs. "I'm going back to sleep. You're being paranoid." I was left alone again in the kitchen, but now fear had settled in my chest like a clenched fist, because I knew my son, and I knew when he was hiding something from me. Something big. The next day, I would start looking for answers. I was going to open drawers, check papers, ask questions, and what I was going to discover would break my heart into even smaller pieces. Because sometimes the greatest pain doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people who swore to love you, and when that betrayal is revealed, the world is never the same again. For the next 3 days, I acted as if nothing had happened, as if I had accepted my new place in the hierarchy of my own house. I made breakfast, I cleaned, I smiled when I had to smile, but inside, every fiber of my being was on alert, watching, listening. Veronica paraded around the house like a queen. She had taken over not only my bedroom, but also my space in the kitchen. She moved my cast-iron skillets, the ones Arthur had given me, to the top cabinet where I could barely reach. She put her expensive ceramic pots where mine had always been. Small victories she savored every time I had to ask for help to reach something. Kevin left early for work and came back late. An engineer at a construction company, he made good money, but it was never enough for his expenses. It had always been like that. He spent more than he had. When he was young, I would cover his small debts. He's young, he's learning, I told myself. Now he was 42 and still hadn't learned. On the third day, Veronica went to the salon. "I'm going to get my hair done, Eleanor." "I'll be back in 3 hours," she said while putting on lipstick in front of the foyer mirror. My mirror, the one I had bought at a flea market 20 years ago. Kevin was at work. The house was empty, silent. It was my chance. I went up the stairs slowly, holding my breath as if someone could hear me. I entered what had been my bedroom. The smell of Veronica's perfume saturated the air. It made me nauseous, but I pushed forward. I opened the closet. All my clothes were gone. In their place, expensive dresses, designer shoes, purses that cost what I used to earn in a month when I was working. I closed the closet and went to the desk. It was a new, modern piece of glass furniture. On it was a closed laptop. I didn't touch it. I didn't know how to use those tech gadgets. But I opened the drawers. Papers. Lots of papers. Invoices for furniture. $4,500 from a luxury decor store. Payment receipts for an interior designer. $3,000. Receipts for imported paint, for curtains, for a lamp that cost more than my first car. And then I found something that froze my blood. A manila folder. Inside, documents printed from the internet. Pages about property rights through improvements. Legal articles marked with a yellow highlighter. When a relative invests significant money in improving a property, they can claim rights to it, especially if there is prolonged cohabitation and the original owner is elderly. My hands started shaking so much I almost dropped the papers. There were notes in the margins. Veronica's handwriting. "Consult with a lawyer. $500. Document all improvements. Before and after photos." I kept looking. Deeper in the drawer, I found an envelope. Inside were photocopies of documents. The deed to my house. But these copies had sticky notes on them. "Change to joint tenancy?" with a question mark. "How long of a possession is needed?" My throat closed up. I couldn't breathe. Veronica hadn't redecorated just for the sake of it. She was building a case. She was documenting investments to claim rights to my house. To the house I had built with the sweat of 15 years of work. I took out my cell phone, an old one that Claire had given me, and I took pictures of everything with trembling hands. I didn't really know how the camera worked, but I pressed buttons until I heard the click. I put everything back exactly as it was and left the room. I went down to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water but couldn't swallow. The water got stuck in my throat along with the knot of betrayal that was growing and growing. I needed more information. I waited for nightfall. Kevin arrived at 9, tired. He went straight to take a shower. Veronica was watching television in the living room, in my favorite armchair, eating popcorn that she dropped on the floor without picking it up. I went to bed early, or pretended to. At 11 o'clock at night, I heard Veronica talking on the phone. Her voice was coming from the backyard. I got up without making a sound and went to the guest room window that overlooked the yard. The thin curtains allowed me to see without being seen. There she was, walking among my geranium pots, the cell phone pressed to her ear. "It's almost ours, Mom, I swear." Her voice sounded excited, triumphant. "The old woman is confused. She says she's going to kick us out, but she can't. Kevin is her son. This is his home too." Silence as she listened to her mother on the other end. "No, she doesn't know about the loan yet. Kevin is scared of her. He won't tell her." She laughed. "Imagine her face when she finds out we use the house as collateral, but by then we'll have everything settled." My heart stopped beating. "Loan? Collateral? Look, Mom, the plan is simple," Veronica continued. "We keep investing in improvements. The more money we put in, the stronger our legal case. The lawyer said that if she tries to kick us out, we can countersue for the investments. And if she gets difficult, well, she's already 67. How much time does she have left? 5, 10 years max. Afterwards, this house will be worth more than $500,000 with all the work we've done. We'll sell it and buy something better in Lincoln Park, just like you always wanted." Tears rolled down my cheeks, but I made no sound. I bit my fist to keep from screaming. "Kevin is a fool, but he's manipulable," Veronica went on. "His mom has him so messed up that he'll do anything not to disappoint her, but she can't manipulate me. I know what I want, and I'm going to get it." More silence, then a laugh. "Violent? Don't be so dramatic, Mom. I'm just being smart. If she was dumb enough to let us live here for free all these years, that's her problem. We're just taking advantage of the opportunity." "For free," she said, "for free. As if for the 3 years they had lived here I hadn't cooked for them every day. As if I hadn't washed their clothes. As if I hadn't paid for the electricity, the water, the gas. As if I hadn't given Kevin $5,000 when he needed the down payment for his car because his credit was rejected." I moved away from the window before I could hear any more. I went back to my small bed and lay there, staring at the ceiling, my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my ears. Now I knew the truth. It wasn't just about taking over a room. It was a calculated, meticulous plan to take my house, to take the only thing I had left in this world. And Kevin knew. My son knew, and he hadn't said anything. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to give them the pleasure of seeing me broken. I was going to be smart. I was going to plan. And when I struck, it was going to hurt so much they would never forget what it feels like to betray someone who gave you everything. But first, I needed help, and I knew exactly who to call. The next day, very early, I dialed a number I hadn't used in months. The phone rang 3 times before it was answered. "Mom, are you okay?" Claire's voice sounded worried. I never called her so early. "Honey," I said, and my voice broke despite my efforts to sound strong. "I need you to come home. I need your help, and I need you to come now." Claire arrived 2 days later. She couldn't come sooner. She had hearings scheduled at her law firm in Denver, but she promised she would come for the weekend. Those 2 days were the longest of my life. Veronica noticed that something had changed in me. I no longer smiled at her. I no longer pretended that everything was fine. She watched me with suspicion, like a cat that knows the mouse is planning to escape. "Is everything okay, Eleanor?" she asked me on Thursday morning as I was making breakfast. "Perfectly," I replied without looking at her. "You seem tense." "I'm fine." She put her coffee mug down on the counter with a sharp rap. "Look, Eleanor, if you're still upset about the room, I think you're being very immature. It's time you get over it. Things change. You're old now. You need to adapt." I turned to look at her. She was wearing a designer tracksuit that cost what I used to earn in a week selling casseroles 20 years ago. Her hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail, her nails freshly done. All paid for with money my son went into debt to give her. "You're right," I said with a calmness that surprised me. "Things do change." She smiled, thinking she had won again. She had no idea what was coming. On Friday night, Veronica gave me the news. "Eleanor, some friends are coming over for lunch tomorrow. We'll be in the living room, and we need privacy. Can you stay in your room? Oh, and if you could make something tasty, we'd appreciate it. You know, your baked ziti is good. Make that." It wasn't a question. It was an order. Kevin was sitting on the couch watching the football game on television. He said nothing. He didn't even look at me. "What time?" I asked. "Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And Eleanor, please, wear something presentable. Not that old bathrobe you always wear." That night, I barely slept. I knew Claire would arrive in the morning. I knew I just had to hold on a little longer. But I never imagined that before my daughter arrived, I would experience the greatest humiliation of my life. Saturday, 11 o'clock in the morning, I started preparing the baked ziti, a rich meat sauce with the touch my mother taught me, layers of pasta, creamy ricotta, and melted mozzarella. The smell filled the house. At 12:30, the doorbell rang. Veronica ran to open it. 4 women her age walked in, all dressed up, perfumed, laughing loudly. They brought bottles of wine, bags from an expensive boutique. "Welcome to my house," Veronica said, emphasizing the "my" while glancing at me. They settled in the living room. I served the ziti on the breakfast bar, thinking they would come get it. But Veronica came into the kitchen and gestured with her hand. "Eleanor, bring it to the living room and get us the wine too." I froze. "What?" "Serve us in the living room. We don't want to get up." I took a deep breath. I took the tray with the plates and went out. Veronica's friends looked at me with curiosity. "Oh, that looks delicious," said one of them, a blonde wearing sunglasses inside the house. I served the plates. I went to get the wine. When I returned with the bottle and glasses, Veronica was showing her friends her new room. "Come on, I'll show you how it turned out. It's beautiful." The 5 of them went upstairs. I stayed downstairs, feeling my stomach churn. I could hear their voices and laughter from the second floor. "It's gorgeous, Veronica. And this was your mother-in-law's room?" "Yes, but you know how older ladies are. Everything old and depressing. We did her a favor by moving her to a smaller room." Laughter. They came down 10 minutes later. They sat down to eat. I was in the kitchen, cleaning, trying to disappear. But then I heard Veronica's voice. "Eleanor, can you bring us more napkins?" I came out with the napkins. When I placed them on the table, one of the friends, a brunette with huge earrings, looked at me with a condescending smile. "And you're Kevin's mom?" "Yes." "Oh, how convenient to have help living in the house. Right, Veronica?" she said to Veronica with a knowing nudge. My blood ran cold. "Very convenient," Veronica replied between laughs. "Although sometimes you have to tell her how things are done. You know, the older generation had different standards." The laughter grew louder. Another friend, a redhead with long, decorated nails, looked directly at me. "And do they pay you anything?" "I mean, for cooking and cleaning." The silence that followed was deafening. Veronica took a sip of wine, enjoying every second. "No, but we give her a roof over her head and food. That's enough, isn't it? Besides, she's family. Family helps each other out." The laughter exploded. I just stood there, my cheeks burning, feeling each laugh like a slap. They saw me as the maid, as a free employee in my own house. "Eleanor, can you clear these plates? We're finished." My hands were shaking as I took the plates. One slipped, but I caught it before it fell. More laughter. "Careful, Eleanor." I went back to the kitchen. I put the plates in the sink. And there, standing in front of the window where the midday sun streamed in, something inside me broke. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was silent, like when a pane of glass cracks. A fine fracture that changes everything. I leaned on the sink, closing my eyes, breathing deeply. The tears wanted to come, but I didn't let them. I wasn't going to cry. Not anymore. In that moment, I heard a voice behind me. "Mom." I turned. There was Claire in the kitchen doorway. I hadn't heard her arrive. She had her small suitcase, wearing jeans and a simple blouse. But what I noticed most were her eyes. Eyes full of angry tears. "How long have you been here?" I whispered. "Long enough to hear everything." Her voice trembled. "Long enough to understand what's happening in this house." More laughter came from the living room. Veronica was telling some story, her voice loud and confident. Claire left her suitcase on the floor and came toward me. She hugged me tightly, and in that embrace, I allowed myself for a second to be fragile, to be the mother who needed her daughter's comfort. "No more, Mom," she whispered in my ear. "This ends today." She pulled away from me, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and on her face, I saw the same determination I had when I was young and decided to build this house against all odds. "Where's Kevin?" she asked. "He went out. Said he'd be back tonight." "Perfect. Then let's get to work. You and I, like it always should have been. What are you going to do?" Claire took my hands, her lawyer's hands, soft but firm. "I'm going to do what I should have done a long time ago. Protect you, defend what's yours, and teach that woman that she can't steal your life. Claire, she has papers, plans, and I have the law on my side, and I have something she'll never have." "What?" "The truth." She squeezed my hands. "Now give me your phone. I need to see those pictures you told me about, and then we're going to review every document for this house, every paper, every receipt. We're going to build a case so solid that when we're done, Veronica will wish she had never set foot in this house." From the living room, Veronica's voice shouted, "Eleanor, more wine!" Claire looked at me, I looked at her, and for the first time in days, I smiled. Not a happy smile, a war smile. "You go," I told Claire. "Introduce yourself. I want to see her face when she knows I'm not alone anymore." My daughter nodded, straightened her hair, and walked out of the kitchen with firm steps. I followed a few feet behind. Veronica was pouring more wine when she saw Claire. Her smile froze. "Claire, what a surprise." "Hello, Veronica," my daughter said in a voice as cold as ice. "I came to spend a few days with my mom. I hope you don't mind if I use my old room." "Oh, wait, that's right. It's yours now, isn't it?" The silence in the living room was absolute. Veronica's friends looked at us, not understanding what was happening. Veronica tried to regain control. "Of course it's no problem. You can stay in the other guest room." "Don't worry, I'll just stay in the room with Mom," Claire said, smiling. But it wasn't a friendly smile. "We have a lot to talk about. Legal matters. About property, inheritance, that sort of thing. Right, Mom?" All eyes turned to me. "That's right, honey," I said, and my voice came out firmer than it had in days. "Lots of things to review." I saw the color drain from Veronica's face, and I knew she knew. She knew her game was over. That the dumb, manipulable mother-in-law she could strip of everything had just called in reinforcements. And these reinforcements were not going to play fair. Veronica's friends left half an hour later. The atmosphere had become uncomfortable, tense, like when everyone knows a storm is about to break but no one wants to be the first to talk about it. Veronica saw them to the door with fake kisses and promises to see them soon. But I could see her hands trembling as she closed it. Claire and I were sitting at the dining room table. My daughter had taken out her laptop, a slim silver one that shone under the light, and had spread papers all over the table. I had given her my phone with the pictures I took from Veronica's desk. "This is serious, Mom," Claire said as she reviewed the images, enlarging them with her fingers on the screen. "Very serious." Veronica entered the living room. She had taken off her heels and was walking barefoot, trying to look casual, but I could see her eyes darting to the papers on the table. "What are you two doing?" Claire looked up. "Reviewing documents. Mom's legal affairs. Don't worry about it." "What documents?" "The ones for the house," I answered, looking her straight in the eye. "The deed, the payment records, everything that proves who owns this property." Veronica crossed her arms. "Nobody's saying it's not your house, Eleanor." "Oh, really?" Claire took out her own phone and pressed the screen. Suddenly, a voice filled the room. Veronica's voice, talking on the phone in the yard. "It's almost ours, Mom. The old woman is confused. She doesn't know about the loan yet." I had recorded everything that night without her knowing. My old cell phone had a voice recorder function that Claire had taught me how to use months ago. The color drained from Veronica's face. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "Sit down," Claire said in her lawyer voice, the one that doesn't take no for an answer. Veronica remained standing. I said, "Sit down." Veronica obeyed, collapsing onto the couch, as if her legs could no longer support her. Claire stopped the recording. "Now we're going to talk, and you are going to tell me the truth. What loan?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't take me for an idiot." Claire's shout surprised even me. My daughter had always been calm, measured. "I have the recording. I have photos of legal documents you were researching on property rights. I have receipts for $15,000 in renovations that were not authorized by the owner of this house. So I'm going to ask you one more time. What loan?" Veronica bit her lip. Her eyes filled with tears, but I no longer felt any pity. I just wanted answers. "Kevin," she began in a broken voice. "Kevin took out a loan. I wouldn't know." "For how much?" Silence. "How much?" $25,000. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. $25,000. More than what part of this house cost to build. "And what did you use as collateral?" Claire asked, although from her tone, she already knew the answer. "The house," Veronica whispered. Claire stood up, pacing around Veronica like a prosecutor questioning a witness. "You used my mother's house, without her knowledge, without her signature, as collateral for a loan. Do you have any idea that's fraud?" "We do have the signature," Veronica blurted out. "Kevin forged." She covered her mouth, but it was too late. The words were out. The world stopped. "What did you just say?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. Veronica started to cry for real now, with sobs that shook her body. "We didn't want to do it like this, but we needed the money. Kevin has debts. A lot of debts you don't know about, Mom. Credit cards, personal loans. If we didn't pay, they were going to sue him, send him to prison. And his solution was to steal his mother's house?" Claire's voice was like steel. "To forge her signature? We were going to fix everything before you found out." Veronica looked at me desperately. "The plan was to remodel the house, increase its value, and then sell it. With that money, we would pay off the loan and give you your share. We were going to buy you a small, comfortable apartment where you wouldn't have to worry about anything. Where I wouldn't be in the way." I finished the sentence for her. A heavy silence fell. "And the legal research on property rights?" Claire continued. "Was that also part of this generous plan?" Veronica didn't answer. "I thought so." Claire went back to her laptop. "Mom, give me the deed to the house." I got up on trembling legs and went to my room, the guest room where I now slept. From the bottom of my suitcase, I took out a yellow envelope where I kept the most important documents of my life. The deed was there, protected in a plastic sleeve. I brought it to Claire. She reviewed it carefully, turning each page with a lawyer's attention. "Here it is," she said after a few minutes. "Protective clause. Dad was very smart when he drafted this with the lawyer. The house is solely in Mom's name. For any transaction, sale, or use of the property as collateral, her certified signature before a notary with 2 witnesses is required. And it says here specifically that no one can transfer rights or create liens without the explicit consent of the owner." She looked at Veronica with eyes that could cut glass. "Which means that any document you signed with a lender is null, completely invalid. And if you forged my mother's signature, you're not just committing property fraud, you're committing a federal crime." Veronica was as pale as a ghost. "Please, please don't do this. Kevin is your brother." "Kevin is a thief," Claire said coldly, "and you are his accomplice." The front door opened. Kevin walked in with a grocery bag, whistling carefree. He stopped in his tracks when he saw the 3 of us in the living room, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. "What's going on here?" "Sit down, Kevin," I said, and my voice didn't tremble anymore. It was filled with something new, a disappointment so deep it had turned into strength. "Mom, Sit down." He sat next to Veronica. "My son. The boy I carried for 9 months, whom I breastfed, whom I watched over when he had a fever, whom I defended from bullies at school. The boy who once told me that when he grew up, he would build me a castle. Now he couldn't even look me in the eye. Claire, Explain to your brother what we just discovered, I said. My daughter took out a folder and began to read aloud. Every document, every receipt, every piece of evidence of their betrayal. The $15,000 in renovations, the legal documents researching how to dispossess me, the $25,000 loan with a forged signature, the recorded conversations of Veronica planning to take my house. With each revelation, Kevin sank deeper into the couch. When Claire finished, the silence was absolute. Even the birds outside seemed to have stopped singing. Is it true? I asked my son. Is all of this true? Kevin covered his face with his hands. Mom, the debts. I didn't know what to do. I was going to pay you back everything, I swear. You didn't answer me. Did you forge my signature? He looked up. His eyes were red. Yes. That simple word fell like a stone into a bottomless well. Then this is what's going to happen, Claire said, taking control. You have 48 hours to get out of this house. You will take only your clothes and your personal belongings. All the furniture you bought with the fraudulent money stays here. You can't kick us out, Veronica shouted. This house is also Kevin's. It's his inheritance. It was his inheritance, I corrected her, until he decided to rob me while I was still alive. Mom, please. Kevin knelt in front of me. Real tears were streaming down his face. Please, give me another chance. I'll fix everything. I'll get the money. You'll what, Kevin? Will you give me back my dignity? Will you erase the fact that you allowed me to be treated like a maid in my own house? Will you make me forget that you signed documents with my name without my permission? Mom, no, I stood up. For 42 years, I gave you everything. My youth, my health, my entire life. And when I finally needed you to take care of me, to respect me, you chose to betray me in the worst possible way. Mom, I love you. Love doesn't steal. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't plan to ship its mother off to a small apartment to take what she built. Kevin was sobbing on the floor. Veronica was in shock, staring at the wall. Claire took some papers from her folder. Here is the document you're going to sign. It's an agreement acknowledging that you have no rights to this property, that all improvements were made without authorization, and that you agree not to initiate any legal action against my mother. If you don't sign it, we're filing charges for property fraud with the district attorney's office tomorrow morning. And if we sign it? Veronica asked, her voice barely audible. If you sign it and leave without any trouble, we won't press charges. It's that simple. Kevin looked at the document. Then he looked at me. Mom, if I sign this, will you ever forgive me? The question hung in the air. And I wondered, could I forgive something like this? Could I ever trust the son who had betrayed me in this way again? I don't know, I answered honestly. Maybe someday, but not today, and not soon. Kevin took the pen Claire offered him. With a trembling hand, he signed the document. Veronica did the same, her tears staining the paper. 48 hours, Claire repeated. And if you dare to damage anything, steal anything, or cause any problems, we'll forget the agreement, and you'll go straight to jail. They stood up like zombies and went upstairs. We heard them walking around on the second floor, opening drawers, talking in whispers. I collapsed onto the couch. The full weight of the past few days fell on me all at once. I started to shake. Claire sat next to me and held me. It's over, Mom. It's over. But I knew it wasn't over. That the next 2 days were going to be hell. That watching my son pack up his life and leave the house I built for him was going to break me in ways I couldn't even imagine. But I also knew something else. That for the first time in a long time, I wasn't alone. And that this battle, I was finally going to win. The next 2 days were a silent torture. Roberto and Valeria moved through the house like ghosts, avoiding my gaze, packing their things into cardboard boxes they had gotten from the supermarket. The sound of packing tape sealing the boxes became the soundtrack of those 48 hours. Claire never left my side for a moment. We slept together in the guest room, holding each other like when she was a little girl and had nightmares. But now the nightmare was real, and we were wide awake, living it. On Monday morning, the deadline day, Claire decided it was time for one last conversation. A conversation to put everything on the table, without yelling, without tears, just truths. "We need to close this properly," she told me as we drank coffee in the kitchen. "Not for them, but for you, so you can move on without any doubts." At 10 o'clock in the morning, the four of us sat at the dining room table, the same table where we had shared hundreds of meals, the table where Kevin had done his homework as a child, where we celebrated his birthdays, his graduations, his engagement to Valeria. Now it was the table of final judgment. Claire had a thick folder in front of her. She opened it with precise movements and began to pull out documents one by one. "Before you leave," she began, "I want you to understand exactly what you did. Not to make you feel bad, but so you never do this to anyone again." She placed the first document on the table. The deed to the house, signed in the year 2005. Total construction cost, $100,000. My mother worked for 15 years to save that money. 15 years cleaning, cooking, selling things. While you, she looked at Kevin, were in school, going out with friends, living a normal life. Kevin stared at the table. Claire placed another paper. Bank statements. "Here are the transactions from Mom's credit card for the last 6 months. She pointed to a line marked with a yellow highlighter. "Charges at department stores for $8,700. Valeria, your name appears on several of the receipts as the person who signed. You used her card without authorization." Valeria wrung her hands but said nothing. Next, Claire put down more papers. Loan agreement with a loan shark from a bad neighborhood. $25,000, borrowed at 30% annual interest. Document with my mother's forged signature using this house as collateral. She looked up. "Do you know what would have happened if you didn't pay? The loan shark would have started legal proceedings. And even though the signature was forged, the process would have been long, expensive, and agonizing. Mom would have had to hire lawyers, go to court, prove the fraud, all while you two enjoyed the stolen money." "It wasn't like that," Kevin started. "Yes, it was," Claire exploded. "Exactly like that. And the worst part is you showed no remorse until you were caught." She placed another document. "Quotes from lawyers specializing in property law. Valeria, you got 3 different legal opinions on how to claim property rights. All the consultations were in February and March of this year. This wasn't an impulse. It was a calculated plan that went on for months. I just wanted to secure our future," Valeria mumbled. "At whose expense?" Claire asked her. "At the expense of a 67-year-old woman who gave everything for her family?" Valeria stood up abruptly. "That's enough. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Well, I am. Are you happy? But don't pretend your mom is a saint. She has always manipulated Kevin. Always made him feel guilty, like he owes her his entire life, just because she decided to sacrifice hers." I gasped. "How dare you?" I began. "It's the truth." Valeria's cheeks were red, her eyes bright. "It's always, Mom suffered so much. Mom worked so hard. Mom sacrificed so much. And you know what? Yes, she did, but that was her choice. Kevin didn't ask her to work herself to death. He just wanted a mother, not a martyr who charges him for every dollar invested." Kevin put his hand on her arm. "Veronica, stop. No, Kevin, I'm not going to be quiet anymore." She turned to me. "I know we made mistakes. I know we were wrong. But you're not perfect either, Eleanor. Always trying to control Kevin's life. Always meddling in our marriage. Always comparing me to your perfect, sacrificial life." The words hurt. They hurt because there was a small truth in them. Maybe I had been too present. Maybe I had used my sacrifice as an emotional weapon without realizing it. "You're right," I said, and everyone looked at me, surprised. "I'm not perfect, and maybe I did make mistakes as a mother. Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I reminded you too many times of everything I did for you." I stood up, looking Kevin in the eyes. "But none of that justifies what you did. None of that justifies stealing from me, forging my signature, planning to dispossess me of the only thing I have left. If you were angry with me, you should have talked about it. If you felt pressured, you should have set boundaries, but you had no right to destroy me." Kevin had tears running down his cheeks. "Mom, I never wanted to destroy you. I just felt so pressured. The debts, work, Veronica wanting a better house, and me not being able to give her anything. And there was this house, so big, just for you. And I thought if we could have it, everything would be fixed. And my opinion? My will? Did that not matter? I thought you wouldn't notice until it was too late, he said, and the brutal honesty of his words was like a punch. I thought by the time you realized, everything would be legally settled, and you'd have to accept it. There it was, the naked truth. It wasn't a mistake, not an impulse. It was a deliberate plan to steal my house before I could defend myself. Claire placed the last document on the table. Mom's new will. We drafted it with the lawyer yesterday. It specifies that this house, upon her death, will pass entirely to my name. Kevin is explicitly excluded from any inheritance related to this property. You can contest it if you want, but with all the evidence we have, you won't win. Kevin turned pale. You're disinheriting me? Yes, I replied, and my voice didn't waver. Because a son who steals from his mother doesn't deserve to inherit anything from her. But you always said the house was for your children, for both of us. It was for my children, but you decided to stop being my son the day you forged my signature. The silence that followed was devastating. Kevin broke down crying, deep sobs that shook his entire body. Valeria held him, but even she seemed to understand there was no going back. You can leave now, Claire said. Your time was up an hour ago. We gave you extra, but no more. You have 2 hours to finish packing and get out. After that, if you're still here, we're calling the police. Kevin stood up, staggering. He looked at me one last time. Is there anything I can do to make you forgive me? The question hung in the air, and I wondered, what could he do? What actions could erase this betrayal? I don't know, Kevin. Maybe with time. Maybe if you prove with actions, not words, that you understand what you did. But that doesn't mean you'll ever live here again. It doesn't mean I'll include you in my will again. Some things, once broken, can never be the same. But I'm your son, and I'm your mother, and you betrayed me. I took a breath. Now go, please, before I regret not pressing charges. They went upstairs for the last time. Claire and I followed to supervise, to make sure they didn't take anything that wasn't theirs. We watched them put the last of their things in suitcases, dismantle their decor from my bedroom, watched Veronica take down the expensive curtains she had bought, the framed pictures of the two of them, the modern lamp. When they were done, they brought the suitcases down. 4 large suitcases, 3 boxes. That was all they were taking from 3 years of living here. Kevin loaded everything into his car parked outside, a car for which I had given him the down payment 2 years ago. Before getting in, he turned one last time. Mom, take care. Kevin, I said, and closed the door. I stood there, on the other side, listening as the engine started, as it drove away, as my son left my house, maybe forever. Claire hugged me from behind. You did the right thing, Mom. Then why does it hurt so much? I whispered. Because love doesn't just turn off overnight. Because even though he did something terrible, he's still your son. And that's the hardest part of all this. The pain comes from exactly that love. I cried in my daughter's arms. I cried for the son I lost. Not to death, but to betrayal. And that kind of loss hurts in ways death never could. But when the tears finally dried, when I pulled away from Claire and looked at my house, free of invaders, free of lies, I felt something new growing in my chest. It wasn't happiness. Not yet. It was something smaller, more fragile, but real. It was peace. And in that moment, I knew I was going to be okay. That maybe it would take time, maybe I would never be the same again, but I was going to survive this, because I had survived worse. And I had always pulled through. The days after Kevin and Veronica left were strange. The house felt different, quieter, bigger. Sometimes I'd find myself setting 3 plates at the table out of habit, and then I'd have to put one away when I remembered it was just Claire and me now. My daughter stayed for a full week. She took time off from her firm to be with me, to make sure I was okay, but mostly to help me reclaim my space. The first project was to undo everything Veronica had done to my bedroom. We're going to give this room its soul back, Mom, Claire said on Tuesday morning. We went down to the garage and started bringing my furniture up. My mother's dresser, heavy and dark with hand-carved details. Claire got help from 2 neighborhood boys to bring up my bed. When they assembled it in its original spot, I sat on the mattress and something inside me settled. "It doesn't smell like her perfume anymore," I said. "We kept the windows open all week. The smell left, and so did she." Claire hung my photographs back on the walls. "Look, Mom, here's you and Dad on your wedding day. So young." The photo looked at me from its frame, the glass now repaired, Arthur in his brown suit, me in my simple white dress. We had our whole lives ahead of us. We didn't know it would be so short for him, so hard for me. "I miss him," I whispered, "especially now. He would have known what to do about Kevin." "I think he would have done exactly what you did," Claire said. "Dad was gentle, but he wasn't a fool. He didn't tolerate betrayal." We spent 2 full days restoring my room. We painted the walls peach again. Claire found the exact shade of paint online that I had used years ago. We put up my floral curtains, my knitted blankets, my family photos. When we finished, I stood in the center of my room and turned slowly, looking at every corner. "There," I said. "I'm home again." But while I was reclaiming my space, Kevin and Veronica were discovering the consequences of their actions. Claire kept in touch with a few people in the neighborhood, and the news came in whispers through gossipy neighbors who would stop by to see how I was, but who really wanted to share what they knew. Mrs. Gable, the lady from the corner store, was the first to visit. "Oh, Eleanor, what a terrible thing about your son," she said while drinking the coffee I offered her. "I saw him the other day loading boxes into a building in a rough part of town. Tiny, tiny apartments, those 2-bedroom places they rent for $1,500 a month. $1,500. Almost all of Kevin's salary would go to rent." "And how did he look?" I asked, unable to stop myself. "He was my son, after all. Worn out, honey, with dark circles down to his chin. And Veronica? Oof, she was in a foul mood, yelling at the moving guys, complaining about everything." A week later, I ran into Mr. Martin, the owner of the hardware store where Kevin used to buy things. "Mrs. Fuentes, your son came by the other day asking for a loan. He told me while I was buying new pots for my garden. I told him I couldn't help him, but he looked desperate. Said collectors were looking for him, that the loan shark he owes is sending people to his job." The loan shark. The $25,000 loan. Without the house as collateral, how was Kevin going to pay? Claire did some digging on her own and told me what she found. "Kevin is trying to renegotiate the debt," she told me one night over dinner. "But the loan shark won't budge. He's charging him interest on top of interest. The debt has already grown to $32,000. And with no assets to offer, he can't get another loan to pay this one off. And at his job? That's another problem." Claire picked at her food without an appetite. One of the collectors went to his office, made a scene at the reception desk. Kevin's boss found out about the debts and the fraud. They didn't fire him, but they demoted him. He's not a supervising engineer anymore. Now he's an assistant. They cut his salary almost in half. I put my hand to my chest. As much as Kevin had hurt me, he was still my son. And hearing how his life was falling apart pained me in complicated ways. And Veronica? She's the one who's really suffering. Claire almost smiled, but it was a sad smile. She had to get a job for the first time in years. I saw her at the supermarket 2 days ago. She was filling out a job application to be a cashier. The image of Veronica, always so put together, so smug, working as a cashier was hard to imagine. 2 weeks after the eviction, I received a call. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" "Eleanor, it's Claudia, Veronica's mother." Veronica's mother, the one who told her daughter she was smart for trying to steal my house. "What do you want?" "I need to talk to you." Her voice sounded tired. "Can we meet?" "I have nothing to talk to you about. Please, just half an hour. I promise it will be worth your while." Something in her tone made me agree. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop near my house the next day. Claudia arrived on time. She was a woman my age, well-dressed, but her face was marked with exhaustion. She sat across from me and ordered a black coffee. "Thank you for coming," she said. "You have 20 minutes, I replied coldly. She sighed deeply. "I came to apologize, on behalf of my daughter and myself." "Apologize?" I knew what Veronica was planning. She told me everything, and instead of stopping her, I encouraged her. Her eyes filled with tears. I thought she was being clever, that she was securing her future. I didn't think about you. I didn't think that we were destroying a family. And now you're thinking about it? Now I see my daughter, shattered, crying every night, working jobs she hates, living in an apartment where you can hear everything from the neighbors. And the worst part is, Kevin blames her. He says it was all her idea, that he never would have done anything if she hadn't pressured him. And was it? Claudia shook her head. I don't know. I think they were both at fault. But Kevin is a coward. He'd rather blame her than accept his own responsibility. And Veronica, my daughter, is paying a very high price. As she should. I know. Claudia drank her coffee with trembling hands. I just came to tell you that I'm sorry, and that if you can ever find it in your heart to forgive Veronica, she is truly sorry. I just looked at her, this woman who had encouraged her daughter to rob me, who had participated in the plan. Now she came, repentant, because it all went wrong. Forgiveness isn't asked for, Claudia, it's earned. And your daughter has a very long road ahead of her if she wants to earn it. I understand. And tell her something for me. Tell her to learn her lesson, that you should never, ever try to build your happiness on the destruction of another person, because life has a way of collecting on those debts. Always. Claudia nodded, finished her coffee, and left. I never saw her again. That night, Claire and I had dinner in the backyard. I had bought some string lights and hung them in the trees, even though it wasn't Christmas time. I just wanted my house to feel cheerful again. How are you feeling, Mom? Claire asked. Strange, I admitted. Sad, angry, relieved, all at the same time. That's normal. You lost your son, but you got your house back. It's a painful trade-off. Do you think Kevin will ever come back? Apologize for real? Claire thought for a moment. I don't know, Mom. Maybe. Or maybe he'll never find the courage. Some children never learn. And me? Will I be able to forgive him? Only you know that. And only time will tell. I looked at my house, lit up with colorful lights, my garden with my healthy geraniums, my space reclaimed, my dignity restored. And I knew that whether I forgave Kevin or not, I was going to be okay. Because I had learned the most important lesson of all. That love doesn't mean allowing abuse. That setting boundaries isn't cruelty. That protecting yourself doesn't make you a bad mother. It makes you human. And it makes you strong. Claire had to go back to Denver after 2 weeks. Her job needed her. Her life was there. She hugged me tightly at the door before she left. Will you be okay alone, Mom? I'll be fine, I told her. And this time it wasn't a lie. I'll call you every day, and if you need anything at all, I'll get on a plane and be here in 3 hours. I know, honey, go on, don't worry. I watched her drive away and stood at the door, feeling the morning sun on my face. The house was silent, but it was no longer an uncomfortable silence. It was peace. The following months were about rebuilding. Not just my home, but myself. I hired Mr. Miller, a man from the neighborhood, to help me fix things that had broken over time. Leaks I had ignored. Doors that creaked. Windows that didn't close properly. Little by little, the house once again became what it should have always been. My sanctuary. I started cooking again. But now I cooked for myself, with time, with love. I made my favorite dishes without worrying about anyone else's tastes. Spaghetti and meatballs when I felt like it. Pot roast on a Tuesday. Sweet potato pie just because. And while I was healing, news about Kevin and Veronica kept trickling in. I didn't seek it out, but the neighborhood has eyes and ears everywhere. Mr. Miller told me that Kevin had sold his car. Saw him on the subway the other day, Mrs. Fuentes. Your son on the subway, at 6 o'clock in the morning, packed in with everyone else. He looked defeated. With no car, a lower salary, and growing debts, life was collecting on every stolen dollar. Mrs. Gable told me about Veronica. Saw her at the market, buying the cheapest of everything, bruised tomatoes, chicken that was about to expire. And she was carrying everything in plastic bags because she doesn't even have a shopping cart anymore. She used to come in here showing off her designer bags, remember? I remembered. Veronica always came in with bags from Nordstrom or Macy's, displaying her purchases like trophies. Now she was looking for deals at the market like any normal person. But the story that hit me the hardest came 3 months after the eviction. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was in the garden watering my plants when the doorbell rang. I went to open it and found a woman I didn't know. In her late 30s, well-dressed with a stern face. "Eleanor Fuentes?" "Yes, that's me. I'm Gabriela Montes, an attorney. I represent Mr. Julio Estrada, the lender to whom your son Kevin owes $32,000. My heart sped up. I don't owe anyone anything. I know, but your son used this house as collateral, and while we know the signature was forged and the document is void, my client wants to get his money back. I'm here to ask if you would be willing to—" "No," I interrupted her. "Whatever you're about to ask, the answer is no. That debt isn't mine, it's Kevin's, and he can pay it." The lawyer sighed. "Mrs. Fuentes, I understand your position, but your son has no way to pay. My client is considering other measures legal, but unpleasant. Are you threatening me?" "No, ma'am, just informing you. Kevin filed a complaint alleging that you knew about the loan and are now refusing to help him. It's a lie. We know that, but I wanted you to be aware. I felt my blood boil. My son filed a complaint against me 2 weeks ago. It was dismissed immediately because it had no legal basis, but he did it." When the lawyer left, I sat on the couch feeling the world spin. Kevin hadn't just stolen from me. He hadn't just betrayed me. Now he was trying to blame me for his debts. I called Claire immediately. "Mom, breathe, just breathe," she said from the other end of the line. "That complaint has no value. It's a desperate attempt by Kevin to get himself out of trouble." "How could he do that, Claire? How could he try to drag me into his problems after everything? Because he's scared, because he's a coward, and because he still hasn't learned that actions have consequences. Well, then let him learn the hard way. And therefore, and so he did. 2 weeks later, I heard from Mrs. Gable that Kevin had been officially sued. The loan shark lost his patience and took the case to court. With no assets to seize, they requested direct wage garnishment. 30% of Kevin's salary would go directly to paying off the debt for the next 5 years. "The boy won't even be able to breathe," Mrs. Gable said, shaking her head. "With what little he earns, and taking 30%, they'll be living on a miracle." And so it was. Veronica had to get a second job. I saw her one night when I went to the 7-Eleven near my house. She was there, behind the counter, in the blue and red uniform, serving customers with an exhausted look on her face. Our eyes met. She turned pale. I said nothing. I paid for my things and left. But I saw in her eyes everything she had lost. Her arrogance, her security, her perfect plan for an easy life. Justice doesn't always come with dramatic blows. Sometimes it comes like this, slow, steady, like water wearing away a stone. 4 months after the eviction, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. This time, it was Kevin. "Mom," his voice was broken, small. "I need to talk to you." "I have nothing to talk about. Please, just 5 minutes. I need to ask you something." Something in his tone made me agree. We met at the same coffee shop where I had spoken with Claudia. Kevin was unrecognizable. He had lost weight. He had gray hairs he didn't have before, deep dark circles, wrinkled clothes. He sat across from me and couldn't look me in the eye. "Thanks for coming," he murmured. "What do you want, Kevin?" "I came to apologize. For real. No excuses, no justifications. What I did was unforgivable. I stole from you. I betrayed you. I tried to take what was yours. And then, like a coward, I tried to blame you for my own mistakes." The words sounded sincere, but I didn't know if I could believe him anymore. "And what do you expect me to do with that apology?" "Nothing. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I needed you to know that every day I wake up with the weight of what I did, that I can't sleep thinking about your face when you found out everything, that I've lost my mother because of my own stupidity. Does Veronica know you're here?" Veronica and I separated. I remained silent. It didn't work. When the money ran out, when we had to face reality, we realized we had nothing else. Our marriage was built on comfort and appearances. Without that, only resentment was left. He rubbed his face. "She went to live with her mother 2 weeks ago. We signed the divorce papers yesterday." And you came to tell me this? Why? Because I needed you to know that I'm paying for it, that life is making me pay for every mistake, and that even though I can't fix what I broke, I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be a better person. Not for you, for me. Because I don't want to end up alone, bitter, with nothing and no one. I just looked at him, my son, the man who had been a sweet little boy, who brought me flowers from the garden, the one who hugged me and told me I was his hero. Where had that boy gone? Kevin, I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you. I don't know if our relationship will ever be what it was, but I took a breath. I wish you peace. I wish you learn from this, and I wish that you never, ever do to anyone what you did to me. Does that mean? It doesn't mean anything yet. It means I'm open to seeing what you do with your life from now on. Words are easy, Kevin. Actions are what count. His eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Mom. That's more than I deserve. He stood up to leave. Before walking out of the coffee shop, he turned. I love you, Mom. I've always loved you, and I'm so sorry I hurt you. I watched him go, walking slowly with slumped shoulders, and I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but maybe it was the beginning of something. A very long road to healing. Because poetic justice doesn't always mean total destruction. Sometimes it means giving someone the chance to rebuild from the ashes of their own mistakes. And maybe, just maybe, Kevin would make it. Or maybe not. But that was no longer my responsibility. My only responsibility now was to myself. And for the first time in a long time, I was okay. 8 months have passed since Kevin and Veronica left my house. 8 months that feel like a lifetime. Now, when I wake up in the mornings, the first thing I do is open the curtains of my bedroom and let the sun in. The light fills the space and touches every object I reclaimed. My mother's dresser, the photographs on the walls, the knitted quilt my sister gave me when we first moved into the house. Everything is in its place. And so am I. I've learned to live alone again. It's not a sad loneliness, the kind that crushes your chest. It's a chosen solitude. Peaceful, mine. Claire comes to visit once a month. She stays for the weekend and we cook together, like when she was a little girl. She teaches me how to use my cell phone better. Now I can even make video calls. She shows me pictures of her life in Denver, of her work, of her friends. She tells me her plans, and I listen with pride, knowing that at least one of my children turned out to be a good person. Mom, you need to meet someone, she said on her last visit. You can't stay locked up in here forever. I'm not locked up, honey. I'm right where I want to be. But a companion, some friends, something, I smiled at her. I have friends, Mrs. Gable and I play bingo on Thursdays. I joined a church group that does crafts, and Mr. Miller invited me to the Saturday afternoon dances at the community center. Really? Claire looked at me surprised. And have you gone? I went once. I laughed. I danced a waltz with a very kind gentleman named Walter, 72 years old, a widower with 3 daughters who live in the United States. He stepped on my feet twice, but it was fun. My daughter hugged me. Oh, Mom, I'm so happy to see you like this. After everything that happened, I thought you'd end up bitter, angry at the world. I was angry, for a long time, but anger is like a poison you drink, hoping it will kill the other person. It only poisons you. I looked out the window toward my garden. I decided I had wasted enough time. I wasn't going to waste any more feeding grudges. That night, after Claire went to sleep, I was alone in the living room. I took out an old box from under my bed. Inside were all the letters and drawings Kevin had made for me as a child. For the best mom in the world, said one in his crooked, childish handwriting. A drawing of the 3 of us, Arthur, Kevin, and me holding hands in front of a house. I cried. Not from rage, from sadness. Because that boy existed. That love existed. And even though the adult Kevin had betrayed me, the little boy for whom I was once everything was also real. I put the box away again. I didn't throw it out. Maybe someday I would need it to remember that people are complicated, that we can love and we can hurt, that we can be good and make terrible mistakes. Kevin has called me 3 times in these 8 months. Short, awkward conversations at first. He tells me he got a new, better-paying job at a small construction company, that he's living in a rented room, alone, learning to cook, that he's going to therapy to understand why he made the choices he made. I haven't given him false hope. I haven't said, all is forgiven, because it's not, but I listen. And maybe, with time, we can build something new. Not what we had before. That died. But maybe something different. More honest. More real. Or maybe not. And that's okay too. Because I learned that a mother's love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until you disappear. It doesn't mean letting them walk all over you because they're your blood. True love includes boundaries. It includes respect. It includes the dignity to say, this far and no further. This house that I built with my own 2 hands, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, is no longer just a building. It's a symbol. It's proof that I can survive impossible losses, that I can get up when I'm knocked down, that my worth doesn't depend on whether my children acknowledge me or not. I am worthy because of who I am, for what I built, for the battles I won and the ones I lost, for every scar I carry with dignity. Now, when I walk through my house, I touch the walls and whisper, we endured, you and I. We endured together. And it's true. The other day, Mrs. Gable told me that Veronica left the neighborhood, that she moved to Ohio with her mother, that she left everything behind and started over. I wish her the best. I really do. Because holding a grudge is like carrying stones. They only weigh you down. Mr. Miller told me he saw Kevin at church last Sunday. He looked different, ma'am. More humble, more present. Maybe he is changing. Maybe not. Time will tell. But I'm no longer waiting for anyone to change for me to be happy. I no longer need my children's validation to know I was a good mother. I did the best I could with what I had. I gave everything I had to give. And if that wasn't enough for Kevin, that's his problem, not mine. Tonight, I sat in my garden with a cup of chamomile tea. The colorful string lights I never took down illuminate the trees. It's cold, but I like feeling the crisp air on my face. It reminds me that I'm alive, that I survived. And as I sit there, thinking about all that happened, about all I lost and all I gained, I come to a simple but powerful conclusion. It was worth it. It was worth fighting for what was mine. It was worth setting boundaries even though it hurt. It was worth saying no even when they called me selfish. It was worth defending myself even if it meant losing, temporarily or forever, the relationship with my son. Because at the end of the day, when I close my eyes in my bed, in my room, in my house, I can sleep in peace. I don't have to wonder who will try to dispossess me tomorrow. I don't have to walk on eggshells in my own home. I don't have to pretend everything is fine when it isn't. I am free. And that freedom, that peace, is priceless. Today, I want to say something to all of you who are listening to me, to all the women who have given so much, who have sacrificed so much, who feel like they can't go on. You have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to say, enough. You have the right to protect what you built with your own hands, with your own sweat, with your own tears. You are not bad mothers for demanding respect. You are not bad people for defending yourselves. You are not selfish for putting your well-being first. Generosity is beautiful. Sacrifice is noble. But when that generosity becomes abuse, when that sacrifice erases you as a person, when you give so much that there's nothing left of you, then it's not love. It's self-destruction. And you are worth more than that. Your children, your partners, your relatives have to learn that respect isn't asked for, it's demanded. That love without respect isn't love. That family does not mean infinite tolerance for abuse. If someone tries to take what is yours, be it a house, your dignity, your peace, you have the right to defend what belongs to you. And if that means distancing yourself from people you love, if it means being alone temporarily, if it means they call you harsh or bitter, so be it. Because chosen solitude is 1,000 times better than company that destroys you. And remember, it's never too late to take your life back. I was 67 years old when I had to face the greatest betrayal of my life. 67 years old. Many people told me I was too old to fight, to start over, to be alone. But here I am, at 68, stronger than ever, more at peace than ever, more myself than ever. Age does not define you. The mistakes of others do not define you. What defines you is how you respond when life hits you, whether you stay down or get up, whether you accept the abuse or you say, never again. I chose to get up, and if you're listening to this and you're going through something similar, I want you to know you can get up too. You have that strength inside you. Maybe you don't believe it now. Maybe you feel broken, finished, too tired to fight. But the strength is there, waiting. You just need to make the decision, one decision at a time, one day at a time, one boundary at a time. And one day, I don't know when, you're going to wake up and realize that you survived, that you moved forward, that you got your life back. And on that day, you're going to smile, and you will know that it was worth every tear, every fight, every moment of pain. Because in the end, the only thing that really matters is this. Can you look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of the woman you see? Can you sleep in peace knowing you defended yourself? Can you live with dignity in the space you built? If the answer is yes, then you've won. And I, Eleanor Fuentes, 68 years old, owner of this house that I built with my own hands, can say with all my heart, I won. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect on your own life, leave me a comment telling me where you're watching from. Share your country, your city, and if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share this video. Give it a like so that more women can find the strength they carry within. And subscribe to the channel to continue joining us for more real-life stories of real women who found their dignity when all seemed lost. Remember, your life belongs to you, your space belongs to you, your peace belongs to you, and nobody has the right to take it away. I'll see you in the next story. Take care, and never forget, you are worth everything. The end.